is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and it's time for that every 6 months, every year, something like that comparison that we do between whatever the latest iPad model is and whatever the latest transformer model is. In this case, we have the new iPad right here with the Retina display, and we have the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700 with its HD display. Similar size, similar functionality. Which one's better? We're going to find out now. So here we have the new iPad, and this is the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700. A lot of words to that name, aren't there? Anyway, both of these tablets sell for $499 in their base configurations, and that gets you a 16 gig iPad or a 32 gig Asus Transformer Pad TF700. The iPad is available with optional LTE, 4G, and 3G built in. Of course, for an additional price, it's going to raise the cost. Right now, Asus does not offer this with 3G or 4G, so if you really have to have built-in wide area wireless, that's not there for you. Of course, you can use your mobile phone as a hotspot, or use an actual hotspot as a hotspot, or hit the local coffee house with Wi-Fi if you need to, but those are the things you're going to have to do if you want to have data everywhere on the Transformer. As you can see from the shape and size, as always, there's going to be a difference in the aspect ratio. 4:3 aspect ratio here, a little bit more square on the iPad, whereas this is 16:10. Resolution here is 1920 by 1200 pixels versus the iPad resolution is 2048 by 1536. So both of these are undeniably very high resolution tablets, certainly a lot higher than any other tablet on the market except for the Acer Iconia Tab A700, which also has a 1920 by 1080 display. I'm sure there'll be more hitting the market, but for now, these two guys offer incredible pixel density, very sharp displays, really nice colors on both of them with decent color accuracy. You know, the whites look pretty much white, they don't look too blue, they don't look too pink, that kind of thing. You can't go wrong with either one. Reading ebooks, reading web pages, watching videos, both very nice. One thing about that aspect ratio, here's the interesting thing. I would bet that iPad people love their 4:3 aspect ratio, but the funny thing is every time we review the, shall I say, oddball Android tablet that has 4:3 aspect ratio, like the Lenovo S2109 or the recent Leader Impression tablet that we reviewed, a lot of Android people say, well, that's a goofy resolution, what good is that? So I leave that up to you. 4:3 used to be really good for TV shows. A lot of TV shows were in that format, but now they're going widescreen too, so pretty much you're guaranteed to see black bars in just about any video you watch on the iPad. That's the bad part. But the good part is if you're reading a book, it's a more ergonomic, more easy to read kind of resolution there. Whereas holding this guy up in portrait mode, you know, it's kind of long, it's kind of skinny. It just doesn't quite feel as book-like. Also for PDFs, they're pretty much laid out for a 4:3 screen, so PDFs are a little bit better looking maybe on a 4:3 screen as well. So it does have its good points for those of you who are currently Android people and are wondering why you'd want a 4:3 screen. And as you saw from the screen rotation there, they both have orientation sensors, so they rotate automatically. You can use both of these in portrait and landscape mode. They both have IPS displays as well, which means very wide viewing angles and, well, just nice looking display. Asus pulls ahead here with their Super IPS Plus display. This thing can get remarkably bright, and there's a convenient little setting over here where you can actually switch from regular IPS to Super IPS mode. So that's good for outdoor viewing, over 600 nits of brightness. Now honestly, I don't really love any tablet outdoors because they're very glossy, you get a lot of glare, and there's always going to be some fade going on, but Asus clearly wins in this case because, well, it's got enough brightness to combat outdoor light. In terms of operating system, well, we have iOS versus Android. We have Android OS 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich here. This will get an upgrade to Jelly Bean. And here we have iOS 5, and I'm sure we'll see an upgrade to iOS 6 here. Now, this is the section where I know a bunch of you are going to get your knickers in a twist because you either love your iProducts or you love your Android products. And I'm not here to change that for you because honestly, each of them has their merits. And I'll just point out what, for each of these Smackdowns that we've done through all the Transformers and the iPads, is still true. The iPad is great for folks who really don't want to mess with technology much. It's very easy to get into and understand. You turn it on, there's a grid of icons. It's pretty obvious what to do. The iTunes store is fairly easy to use. Pretty much most all your content is going to be coming from iTunes, so that's another important point. If you're already an iTunes kind of person, you get your music from there, you get your videos from there, well, you're good to go. Android, on the other hand, is still much more like a replacement for a computer in terms of operating system capabilities. And those who love Android will say that that makes it superior. I say that it makes it different. It really depends what you want to do with it. For iOS, if you primarily want to consume movies, you want to play a lot of really high quality games, you want to look at photos, you want to do your web, you want to do your email, you don't care about Adobe Flash, the iPad is great. On the other hand, with Android, you do get Adobe Flash now. That will eventually disappear from the Android market as Adobe says they won't be supporting it anymore, but I'm sure that that Adobe Flash file is going to be floating around for download on the web from various sources for a long time for those of you who really like your Adobe Flash, and goodness knows a lot of websites still use it. There's a lot to be said for actually having Flash. It's not all so difficult to use. I mean, you get your icons here on the desktop, and if you want to just tap there, you have the same icon grid that you do there, but you are greeted with the desktop first off, which is where you can put your widgets and all sorts of customized information for people who love information on the go instead of just always looking at a grid of icons. Big selling point there. And some things really are right at your fingertips. The manufacturers can customize this little, shall we call it, start menu over here, and you can see we've got quick access to all of our wireless radios, brightness controls, whether this guy's running in normal, turbo, or energy saver mode, and access to any removable storage. Which leads to another point. With the iPad, pretty much Apple would like you just to see you use your internal storage. That's the easiest, go with the flow kind of way of doing things. If you want to start using other kinds of storage, there's the camera connection kit, which has a instead of two little dongles, one has a USB port, the other one has an SD card slot, and apparently with the latest version of iOS, they used to offer you an option as to how much USB power you want to let it output. Now it's just low power, so a lot of things actually don't work anymore with that camera connection kit. You can pretty much count on actually your camera's still working, although some people have trouble with card readers if they try to use that with the USB adapter. But this guy right here, for 15 bucks you can get yourself a USB dongle adapter, or you can use the optional keyboard dock, and that has a full-size USB port on it. It has a micro SD card slot, so you can expand storage that way. The keyboard dock has a full-size SD card slot, and it supports USB host with that either keyboard USB port or the dongle adapter, and that means just about everything that Android has a driver for is going to work. So Asus has also included a couple of extras, so that means USB Ethernet adapters even work. Flash drives work, hard drives work, NTFS and FAT32 both, keyboards, mice, game controllers. There are no drivers in Android for USB 3G and 4G dongles, so that one won't work for you. But a lot of versatility, again, a lot of computer-like functionality. You get a file manager, so you have access to all of your storage on here. You don't need to use iTunes to get your content on and to get it organized. So for those of you who are looking for a computer replacement, it's Android. For those of you who are looking for a turnkey, very easy to use, very snappy, portable video player, photo viewer, web browser, email, then the iPad is absolutely great. Now with the iPad, you have a choice of a whole bunch of third-party keyboard cases for those of you who want to actually use a keyboard, and those are Bluetooth based. With this one, you can use Bluetooth keyboards. You won't find those nifty folios designed for it, but that's because Asus makes an optional keyboard dock, which is what's made the Transformer a pretty popular product. And here's that keyboard dock. For those of you who watched our video review of the Transformer TF700, you already know what this looks like. This is actually the dock for the Prime. The last generation model works fine for me, a little bit cheaper. Stick it in there, clamshell style, and it becomes, well, it looks like a little 10.1 inch notebook computer of sorts. Just pop it in the dock, locks in, and voila, holding itself up, no stand needed. So for those of you who are looking for a computer replacement, well, obviously this has your trackpad, it has a keyboard, it has a USB port, it has an SD card slot, and it has an additional battery in here. Now in terms of weight and size, the new iPad is actually a little bit heavier, 1.44 pounds versus 1.29 pounds. The new iPad got a little heavier than the iPad 2. Still not a burden to carry by any means, and they're just about the same thickness. You can see the aspect ratio means that the Transformer is going to be a little bit longer this way, but otherwise they're pretty similar in size, and they both have metal backs. Different aesthetic and design, but metal is metal is metal. And the Transformer is available either in amethyst gray, what we have here, or with champagne gold, which pretty much just looks like a warm silver color. And if we look around, they both have tapered sides, and they have volume controls, a power button, Singer speaker hole in both of them. I would give the iPad a little bonus for being louder. It doesn't have the best audio I've ever heard from a tablet, but it's pretty good. That's your little dock connector right there. It's also where you're going to plug the charger in, 30 pin. And here we have something else. We have a micro HDMI port. Now if you want to use HDMI on the iPad, you can do that. That's a $40 adapter, and that will mirror your display and you can play videos out. Though some things that are copy protected may not play out, but that's going to be true on either platform. It depends on whether the player or whether your TV support HDCP. The device itself, the transformer TF700, does support copy protection. Both have 3.5mm headphone jacks. And there we got the side view. The iPad is just a hair thicker, really nothing to speak of there. In terms of ruggedness, honestly, both of these, because they're thin, they're glass, they're metal, you know, I would be careful with either of these. These are not the Toshiba Thrive, the rubbery, rugged, thick tablet, or the Acer Iconia Tab A700, which feels like, well, it could be dropped from 5 feet, no problem. This has Gorilla Glass too. It's the latest version of Gorilla Glass. It's thinner. It's supposed to make for a clearer display, even a bit stronger, and we don't know what Apple uses for theirs, but so far I've found that iPad screens are quite durable. We've had all 3 models, original iPad, iPad 2, new iPad, and never a problem, no scratches, haven't used a screen protector, have not managed to crack it so far either. In terms of processing power, you know, specs only mean so much here because they're running 2 different operating systems, and iOS is certainly highly optimized for the processor it's running on. That's a dual-core CPU used in that with a quad-core GPU, and this guy is a quad-core CPU with a 12-core GPU. This one runs on the Tegra 3 made by NVIDIA, and this is Apple's own CPU in here. I would guess that certainly on paper the Tegra 3 should be the more powerful that's used in the Transformer. But as always, iOS is a little bit snappier because they do all those little UI enhancements that make things feel like they're happening right at that moment. So that's something that Jelly Bean addresses and tries to do some of the same stuff, so you feel like the UI is more responsive. But I know it's a complaint that some people have who've been using an iPad. They feel like everything just runs a lot quicker here, launches more efficiently, and you sometimes see a little bit of a delay on Android. In terms of stability, I've had my problems with iPhones, but honestly the iPad is pretty rock solid stable. Pretty hard to crash that bugger, honestly. I've left it on for weeks at a time, use it, and no problems whatsoever. Android, a little bit more finicky. You'll see some forced closes in applications. Occasionally you're going to have to reboot this guy to keep it running as fast and smooth. So for those of you, again, who really think that that's a real pain in the neck, gee, you have enough of that with your computer, well, then the iPad is going to be more attractive. Much is made of app selection and games, and honestly there are quite a few apps that run on Android now for the tablet, and I don't have any complaints. And it used to be it was pretty sad. There were like 5 Tegra Zone games and that was about it. There's a lot of good games out there. Now, one thing that I will say though is that they still tend to lag behind the iPad release. Say Max Payne, there's a classic example right there. It came out on the iPad and kept getting delayed and delayed. It is now out for the Android tablet, but most things you'll see a couple of weeks to sometimes a couple of months delay for some of those big top titles, but you get a lot of the same stuff. You've got Max Payne, you've got Dead Trigger, you've got Dark Meta, you've got first-person shooters, a couple of RPGs. So if you're really a hardcore gamer though and you go through a lot of games, I'd say still it's going to be the new iPad for you because, well, there is just a huge selection of games, really. And while Android has come a long way, the selection is not nearly as big yet. In terms of productivity applications and everything else, you've got your Netflix on here. Hulu Plus, it still depends on which Android tablet you have. That's not as consistent. Certainly you got that on the new iPad. With the Android device, you're obviously going to get the Google Play Store and Google Play Movies, so you can buy and rent movies from them. You can also use other services. You can even use Amazon Prime. You're going to have to use it through a W Flash player, which is not the most, shall we say, fluid experience compared to, say, using HTML5 video playback on YouTube, but it's there. You generally, if the store supports it at all, the formats that are supported by this, you'll be able to buy or rent on this. If there's an application, certainly, then you can. And if you've got your cable TV provider, say Time Warner has an application, you can do that. With the iPad, pretty much Apple wants you to see or rent movies and buy movies from them. If you have stuff that you can sideload, load through iTunes that does not have any copy protection, which means, well, there goes most everything that's legal that you've acquired. You can put anything without copy protection on there that you want on the iPad. And speaking of iTunes and agreements with other folks who supply stuff, you know that if something is available in iTunes as an app, say Kindle or Nook or any other application like that, Apple wants to take a little cut, and some of the manufacturers or resellers really haven't been too thrilled with that. So we saw in-app purchase for Kindle go away, and these things are bouncing back and forth with Nook and all that kind of stuff. And there's no problem with Android with that. If Google says, go ahead, we're not going to take a cut, so you can buy stuff right inside of apps that are on the Google Play Store that you load here. So if you load your Kindle or your Nook or whatever, no problem with that. On both of these guys, you can sideload EPUB books and use the EPUB reader of your choice, again, without DRM. And on both of these, you can do DRM stuff like Overdrive, library books, which is pretty cool, and audiobooks as well. Both tablets have Wi-Fi. It's single band Wi-Fi 802.11bgn on the Transformer Infinity TF700, and it's dual band on the iPad. And we've had good reception with both of these, honestly. Asus has certainly fixed their problems that they had with the Prime, and this guy has very good reception for Wi-Fi, and the iPad is pretty good too. Now, for those of you who need a GPS, with the iPad, you're going to want to get the Wi-Fi plus 4G LTE model, because that one has the GPS with 8 GPS and GLONASS built in. And the Asus Transformer has the GPS, even though it's just Wi-Fi only. You don't have to worry about not buying the cellular version of this. You don't need it, and it actually does work, happily so. Much better than the Prime, because that one was a problem. So for those of you who need to navigate on the go and want to use your tablet, keep that in mind. The Wi-Fi only iPad will use Wi-Fi triangulation, and it'll fool you. You might think that it's actually got a GPS in there, because that can be pretty accurate, but once you go out of range of your Wi-Fi access point, it's not going to be getting the information necessarily. It might pick up your neighbors and get information from that, it might not. Both of these obviously have web browsers. You've got Google's WebKit browser, and you can load Chrome on this. In fact, there's several third-party browsers, a little bit more limited in your browser selection for Safari and Apple's OS, but here we have the browser going in both, and pinch zooming, yeah, works fine. No problems there. Scrolling pretty smooth on both of them. Big plus with this one is you're going to get Adobe Flash on the Android tablet, at least for now, like I said. The other plus is that Android web browser has this handy little option over here, Request Desktop Site. So for those of you who say, hey, I bought a 10-inch tablet so I wouldn't have to look at a silly little phone-optimized website, that's really handy. That actually works for most sites, so you can actually see the full desktop website if you want. The challenge, and this isn't Apple's fault at all, but the challenge is that because the iPad and the iPhone are so popular, so many sites do browser detection. They say, aha, you got an iPad, so we're going to give you this special dumbed-down mobile version for the iPad. It can be really annoying, and you're lucky when they have a link that says, show me the full Monty, show me the whole site there, but sometimes they don't. So, unfortunate truth with the iPad. Sometimes you do get locked into mobile sites more often. And now we've got the same HD movie trailer loaded on both, and both of them you can actually see at 1080p video at 1080p, but notice the difference in the amount of black bars. And now I'll hit play on both of these so you can see how it plays. It's going to play perfectly fine on both of these guys. And they both look really nice. Either one is going to be great in terms of video quality for watching movies. And both of them have decent speakers. Happily, they both work with external speakers and with headphones very nicely. In terms of battery life, you're looking at pretty similar run times. Apple claims up to 10 hours for the Wi-Fi model, up to 9 hours if you're using the LTE model, and actually using LTE or 3G. And Asus gets about 9 hours in our test as well. Now, if you use the optional keyboard docks, that goes up to about 14 and a half hours, but just straight tablet, pretty much similar battery life. Lastly, both of these guys have a front video chat camera that work fine. On the iPad, you're probably going to want to use FaceTime, and you're probably going to want to use Skype on your Transformer Infinity TF700. Now, the rear cameras, the iPad has a 5 megapixel rear camera. That's pretty comparable to the iPhone 4, not 4S, the iPhone 4 camera, which is to say, as tablets go, that's pretty good. It's not bad. It can shoot 1080p video, reasonably pleasing pictures. But Asus really improved their game with the Transformer Pad Infinity TF700, and this guy's an 8 megapixel camera with an LED flash, shoots 1080p video, really good photos, like photo quality you don't usually see in tablets. Very nice, almost as good as the Samsung Galaxy S3 in terms of photos, so a winner there. But how many of you wave a 10-inch tablet around and take photos and shoot video? I don't know. But if that is something that you like to do, yeah, the Infinity is going to have the better camera. In terms of audio quality through headphones, both of these sound quite good. Much better than their built-in speakers, by the way. So that's our comparison Smackdown between the new iPad and the Asus Transformer Pad Infinity TF700, two tablets that start at $4.99, very hot, very new, both very nice, honestly, either way, it's good stuff. And as I say, just about every time we do an iPad versus something Android Smackdown, really the first thing is which OS do you like better? And what is it that you want to do with your tablet? If you're pretty much just into consuming stuff, which is cool, videos, watching movies, looking at photos, surfing the web, doing your email, and you want to keep things really simple, you don't want to have to worry about dealing with any slowdowns, any crashes, anything like that, just very straightforward but unmutable UI. This grid of icons is this grid of icons, and that's what it is. Then the iPad is for you, the new iPad. Now, if you want something that does more computery kind of stuff, you're looking for a replacement for a laptop, you want to be able to copy documents onto your SD card and access them with whatever Office suite you like, transfer all sorts of files, versatility, USB host here, you have your micro SD card slot, you have your HDMI on, the optional keyboard dock. This guy is more of your computer replacement, more of a power user product, certainly. Customizable home screen, you can have widgets with your weather, your calendar, your appointments, anything you want, your social networking, right here for information at your fingertips. So two very different approaches to what looks like basically the same kind of slab of metal and glass. Also, while Android has really caught up with a lot more tablet apps than they used to have, say, a year ago, and all the staples there, you have Office suites, you have your Netflix, you have a variety of third-party browsers and video players, and all that kind of stuff, and a nice selection of games. Well, you know, the iPad still wins. There are more applications. You might say, how many notepad replacements do we need, that kind of thing. But there's a lot of useful application, and particularly for you gamers, I would recommend the iPad because of the really, really big selection of iPad games, high quality, that are available. In terms of build quality, they're both very good, both made of metal. We've got Gorilla Glass here, Gorilla Glass 2 actually on the Asus, which is nice to know. Asus has caught some flack for the Prime with some build quality issues, but it seems like they pretty much rectified that here with the TF700. The Infinity is a well-made product. So in the end, I hate to tell you, they're both good tablets and they both have their strong points. I hope the things that we pointed out are going to help you decide based on what kind of tablet you're looking for and what features are important to you. Ease of use, access to iTunes versus something like the keyboard dock or USB host. Those are the big differentiators here. Both have really sharp displays. Both are pretty quick. And both are top-of-the-line devices with pretty high price stickers starting at $4.99. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to watch our video review of each of these tablets, read our full written reviews, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel.